Well, the 2022 Tour de France Stage 5, Brent, is going to head to the cobbles. We're here on the cobbles in Bruges after a rest day, transfer day. But one of the big stages coming up after Stage 4 is this Stage 5, 19.4 kilometers, I believe, 11 sectors. 5 of those 11 sectors are over 2 kilometers long, and about half of those sectors, neither the Tour de France or Paris-Roubaix have ever been over those cobblestones. They're nasty, they're tough. I can remember 2010, you were trying to help Cadel Evans to the yellow jersey. Fabian Cancellara was in the yellow jersey at the start of that stage. What was it like?
It was mayhem. I was super nervous then, and I'm really excited for that stage this year. Yeah, just so much anticipation. Once again, we keep talking about these nerves, this tension in the first week. It's amplified by 10 when they throw the cobbles in. You know, we see these cobbles in Paris-Roubaix, iconic cobblestone race defined by these road surfaces. This is a little different because we're talking about the GC guys of the Tour de France. We're talking about all their climber support, so it's a much different peloton, but the stakes are just as high. But we have that GC dynamic, these guys who have to also be performing in the high mountains on a 20-kilometer massive HC climb. They gotta be up there, they gotta be fighting, they gotta not lose time, and they cannot crash, they can't hit the ground and end the race.
So that year you were trying to keep a Cadel Evans who's pretty handy on tough road conditions. You talked about before the Strade Bianche. We were looking at the old footage, and you mentioned that Cadel's tough fighter over those conditions. But how, you know, a GC rider doesn't sign up for these cobbles. A one-day rider does when he rides the cobbles at Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah, I mean, some of these GC riders are going to love it. Like Geraint Thomas, for instance, that year in 2010 when I was there, I think he was up there in the top 5. You know, this is 12 years ago. He's already up there fighting for the win. So a guy like him, it's going to suit him really well. Yeah, that year when I was there with Cadel, he was loving it. I mean, he actually wasn't loving it. He was dreading it. So much can go wrong, obsessing about tire choice, wheel choice, how we're going to position him into those cobbles. And yeah, it was really mayhem. You know, we hit the cobbles. The guys at the back, you know they just have to get to the finish. They're sort of done and checked out. But at the front, there's crashes, there's guys hitting the ground, there's guys puncturing. The team cars are everywhere, which is also a point to note from these first few stages. That team car position is going to be really important for this stage. And I remember actually myself, I was being stressed out about that team car position that day. I was our best finisher in the time trial, the first stage that year. So my GC position was influencing our team car position. And yeah, so in the lead into there, I was carrying that weight of holding the team car position.
For Team BMC, the weight was on your shoulders that year, and the cobbles aren't used every year in the Tour de France, but they reappeared in 2014, and then we saw Team Astana take control. Rain fell hard overnight, Brent. I remember sitting in the pre-race village that day, not even wanting to go out in my car and drive on the course, let alone interview the riders at the finish. That day, Vincenzo Nibali just showed master class over the cobblestones. We saw Lars Boom with Team Belkin go free that day and take a special win in that green jersey, and it meant a lot for him that year. But the gains were made by Vincenzo Nibali, who paved the way to the final overall. Interesting, Chris Froome, who crashed the day before, also crashed that day ahead of the cobbles and abandoned the race, so ended his streak, but he still eventually won 4 editions of the Tour de France. And then we had the last edition, the 2018 edition, Brent.
Yeah, 2018 was different conditions. It was dry. That's probably the worst thing that these GC guys can imagine going into the stage, is seeing that forecast come in with rain. I think right now it's looking dry for Stage 5 of this year's Tour de France, so they'll be breathing a sigh of relief. But that does not really mean it's not treacherous. It's going to be dusty, it's going to be loose, and yeah, it's going to be really hard fought, just like it was in 2018. And we saw GC guys there slip out of contention, and the race sort of be over.
That day we saw Chris Froome, Team Sky. We saw Geraint Thomas, Team Sky as well, crash, but without serious consequences. Richie Porte, I don't think he ever even made it to the cobblestone sectors. Romain Bardet had mechanicals. There was chaos everywhere. That's why fans, journalists love this stage, but the GC riders sure as heck do not. And with the top 3 that day, it was John Degenkolb, already a winner in Paris-Roubaix, won the stage, and it was an emotional one, a great one to see Degenkolb win the stage over, I think, Greg Van Avermaet and Yves Lampaert, or vice versa there for the podium. And Yves Lampaert already in yellow in this Tour de France, and I think those guys will be favorites for this year's stage when we go over the cobbles. Of course, not Van Avermaet, who here's not racing, but Yves Lampaert and Degenkolb.
Yeah, those guys will carry a lot of confidence. I mean, experience counts for so much. Degenkolb, Lampart. Also the teams that know how to handle themselves in the classics, they know how to handle themselves at Paris-Roubaix. They will be licking their lips a little bit, and they'll be thinking, this is their chance to shine and grab a big result in the first week.
You're Geraint Thomas. We were talking about him before, who did well back in the day. He's one of the GC guys. He's probably the strongest of the GC guys over the cobbles, but you're saying all those top GC guys can really handle their own.
Yeah, these days it's hard to really rack my brain and come up with a GC guy who is, not capable of riding. These days they're all good time trialists. They're all good bike handlers. We've seen Pogačar handle himself and Strada Bianca. We've seen a lot of these guys handle themselves in even in 2018 in the Tour de France cobble stage. So, maybe a guy like Adam Yates, the really little guys, they're not going to like it. You need some weight to really anchor yourself down into that bumpy surface. And really none of these GC guys have that weight. They're all super light. They're super lean down for the Tour now. They're prepared for the hot conditions. They're all heat acclimated. So this is not, what they've been specifically preparing for, but like we said, these days the GC guys, the level is so high, there's such a diverse skill set, and they're capable, but anything can happen.
Well, after Jorgensen's ride over in Paris-Roubaix, I think in 2020 or 21, he did so well. We'll be looking to see how he goes. Guillaume Bovan, we'll be looking to see how he goes. Strong over the cobbles, like always. I think some of the favorites for the GC guys are going to be riding not to lose time on the day. The favorites to win the stage are probably going to be those guys, as you said earlier in the card today, those guys that have been winning the stages in the last 2 days. Your Wout van Aert, your Peter Sagan will be up there. Those are the strong guys over the cobbles.
Yeah, and another thing to note for this day, often the first week of the Tour, like we've seen the first 2 open road stages, the breakaway is a little less contested. We saw Maggie Court doing the big ride for the KOM jersey, but he was up there alone on stage 3. Wait to stage 5 when there's a lot to be gained. We see at Paris-Roubaix all the time. The early break can go deep into the race, and teams will be definitely thinking they're going to play their card. They're going to try to put a support rider up the road to help their GC rider when they come through. They're going to have that second team car up there, and that fight for the break is going to be much more tactical and harder to get in.
Like we saw this year in Paris-Roubaix, Ineos lit it up, and we had an exciting race. It all came back together, but that was fun, and that's what we can expect on Wednesday in the Tour de France, Stage 5. Be there with us.